Clicking on broadcast. Hello, my name is Ted Ritzer, and I'm the host of the Greening Government Speaker Series. It's a collaboration between Alberta Environment and Parks and the Municipal Climate Change Action Centre. And today we're fortunate to be joined by a group that represents the Green Municipal Fund. And we have three speakers. Our very own Alberta-based Ben Henderson, who is the chairperson for the Green Municipal Fund, and Rachel Deslauriers, and also Devin Causley. And I think my understanding of this, and you guys can correct me, but the Green Municipal Fund is a $300 million funding or grant program that inspires green efforts within local government across Canada. Is that right, Ben? Rachel?
The mouse gave out on me at an inopportune moment. It's actually it's actually 500 million. Or we started with a $500 million endowment. It's a revolving fund, so it allows us to give the money out many times, hopefully.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'll let our webinar audience know that I'm now going to share the screen and load up the PowerPoint for the presentation. And the screen should have filled with the first slide of the Green Municipal Fund. For whoever is starting the session off.
It's me. So it's Ben Henderson here. I actually am the newly minted chair of the Green Municipal Fund. Well, I'll wait to get back to the main slides. All the notes I'm not giving. There we go. Just to give you a little bit of it, if you want to go to the next slide. I'm going to give a little bit of background first of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, that is where the fund is housed. Then give you a bit of an overview of the fund and some of the projects we've been doing to give a feel for it. Then I'm going to pass it off to Devin Causley, who will tell you a bit about the Partners for Climate Protection program that he runs. And then Rachel Deslauriers will close it down to give you a sense of, we've got a slightly new offer in terms of how we're giving the funds out, starting, well, it just started, and she can give you some breakdown specifically in how that works. So that's a kind of overview of it. Before I start though, and if we can go to the next slide, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the organization that hosts the Green Municipal Fund. Federation of Canadian Municipalities is the national voice of municipal government, has been since 1901, so we've been around a long time. It has over 2,000 members. It represents the interests of municipalities on policy and program matters that fall within federal jurisdiction. Members include everything from Canada's largest cities to the small urban and rural communities, and 19 provincial and territorial municipal associations, so things like AUMA and AMDC in this province and the equivalent in other provinces. So that's essentially the FCM. Its major job is to work on things that connect municipalities to federal jurisdiction. So we've been quite successful in the past. Recent successes are things like the Transit Fund, some of our push on housing that we're still working on for smaller communities, a push on getting broadband out into smaller communities. Those are the kind of areas that we've been doing a lot of advocacy, infrastructure, and in the case of this, something that's been around now for 15 years, the Green Municipal Fund, which is basically an endowment fund that came from the federal government that allows us to do low-cost loans out to help sustainable projects, as well as do a lot of knowledge sharing, gather a lot of information about what's happening in municipalities, and basically the objective is to try and get municipalities beyond business as usual in terms of sustainability. And that's all done with a revolving fund that started at 500 million and is now up to about 580, 590, I can't remember the exact figure today, which is loaned out and then comes back against sustainable projects in municipalities. So we can go to the next slide. We have a video that is a little bit more eloquent than I am in describing all this to you. So it'll give you a good overview of our mandate and the types of activities we do and the impact it has on municipalities coast to coast. So Ted, if we can move on and run the video, that would be great.
are here. You're facing some real challenges: financing, policy constraints, and public demands. You need ideas for creative solutions that can help you move your project from vision to reality. Your needs are real, and they're centered on building a more sustainable future for your community, attracting investment and talent. You have a clear view of where you need to go, but you know it's going to take real effort, skill, and perhaps even a bit of luck to get there. We're the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and our Green Municipal Fund is a unique program that supports the groundbreaking work of leaders who are driving change in their communities. And if that sounds like you, keep watching. At GMF, we are here to help municipalities and their partners on the ground. Here's how we do it. First, we inspire new thinking by sharing the best in green solutions, all proven through the practical experiences of your peers. Second, we're committed to connecting you to other leaders in the field because we know it will support your current thinking and ideas and generate new ones. Third, we can help you with the tools, practical training, and grants you need to build a strong case for local sustainability. And we can help you by providing much-needed financing for leading-edge projects. Back to your view of the path that lies ahead. The Green Municipal Fund is your partner in sustainability, offering you the tools and resources that can help you move your project forward in areas as diverse as brownfields, energy performance, water performance, and waste reduction. And by the way, this program is not just aimed at major municipalities. We know that innovation comes from leaders in cities and towns of all sizes, each with their own unique needs and challenges. Drawing upon the results and lessons learned from over 1,000 initiatives funded for the past 15 years, the Green Municipal Fund is all about you. Local leaders who are setting new standards for greener communities and building momentum for sustainability in Canada. When all is said and done, it is your contributions that create the lessons of success that can help us build a stronger, more sustainable Canada. The Green Municipal Fund, working with you every step of the way.
Well, great. Well, thanks for that. So that gives you a good overview. If we can go to the, there we go, the next slide. Perfect. That gives you a bit of a background on GMF and FCM, and basically, as I mentioned before, it's been around for over the last 15 years, improving the quality of life for Canadians. So what we wanted to do now, actually, before I go there, because I realize it's not in my notes, and it was mentioned in there as a kind of pitch that we need to make, the Sustainable Communities Conference, which is the really big conference that we hold right now annually to bring municipalities together to talk about sustainable communities, is coming up in February in Ottawa. So if anybody's interested in more of that, please let us know, because we'd love to have as many people out as we can. So that having been, the advert having been said, I'll now want to walk you through some of the examples of how GMF has helped transform the municipal sector. So we can go to the next slide. Our first example is in the city of Varennes. The first one, it's a net zero library in Varennes that recently opened its doors to the public. And actually, I was talking to the mayor of Varennes the other day, and he says, and I have no reason to disbelieve him, this is actually the first net zero public building in Canada. Varennes was able to meet its residents' needs for a new library while saving on long-term operational costs. Indeed, by reducing energy consumption through energy saving measures and renewable energy, they'll be saving close to $80,000 per year. The library offers also a space for the community to come together for cultural activities, as well as an animation for children and teens. So that's the first example of a project that was supported by GMF. The second one, if we can go to the next slide, just to give you a sense of the variety, is City of Kitchener. It's another example of the municipal sector. Innovation is Kitchener's municipal sector innovation. It's Kitchener's maintenance facility, for which GMF provided funding for both the feasibility study, which is a grant, and the capital project, which would have a small piece of grant to it and the loan portion. Sustainability features of this project include one of Canada's largest roof-mounted solar arrays, a geothermal heat recovery system, and various measures to conserve and recycle water. So it actually hit on 3 of the different areas that we're very keen on supporting: energy, water, and energy and water, and 2 of the areas I'm miscounting there. The next one, it will be familiar to me and maybe familiar to some of you. It's the City of Edmonton. It's Edmonton's Icon Fox redevelopment, and it illustrates the economic side of these environmental projects. For those of you that are familiar with Edmonton, this is right downtown on the old Greyhound site, which was really seriously contaminated. So GMF contributed to a multi-phase project to remediate and redevelop the site. The Fox 1 is now up, and Fox 2 is well on its way. This project will provide the long-term benefit of millions of dollars in tax revenue for the city in the years to come, as opposed to the very limited tax base of the surface parking lot that we were getting before, resulting in some cases in 10 times more revenue for the city of Edmonton. So that's a really good example of one of our brownfield projects. The next slide, and the last one for me, is the Iqaluit Aquatic Center, again to give you a good variety of the spread of our work across the country. Iqaluit has a growing population, a large youth population, so from a social standpoint, this project was hugely important. The Aquatic Center, complete with pool, fitness center, elders lounge, and outdoor public spaces, will be built in pedestrian-friendly location on a vacant brownfield site. Over and above a long list of environmental features, the project will also help address some root causes of the community's social issues, which deals with the triple bottom line piece of what we're looking for in these projects. This project will aim to provide Iqaluit with the infrastructure it needs to support the health of its community for years to come, while providing greater environmental value. So, next slide. How can we help you? And actually, the next slide will answer that question. And actually, this is the last one for me. So, GMF can help you move beyond business as usual, and that's really our focus through knowledge-sharing activities such as I mentioned, the Sustainable Communities Conference, during which case studies are featured. We can help find experts and peers through different means, such as the new peer-to-peer program on asset management and brownfields that we've just started up. Help design and develop innovative solutions by educating and training, and help build business cases by offering grants to assess the feasibility of green initiatives. And GMF helps bridge the funding gap by offering capital funding for energy, transportation, water, waste, and brownfield projects for which we offer the lowest rates on the market, particularly when it's combined with the grant. And remember that private sector partners are also eligible for GMF funding. So you can, as you can see, GMF is more than just about funding. And today, I'm going to pass it over now to Devin Causley, who can take you through one of our flagship programs that's been around for a while, which is Partners for Climate Protection. So over to you, Devin.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you everybody for coming out this afternoon for the webinar today. So I'll walk you through another one of FCM's major programs, which has been around since 1994, which is our Partners for Climate Protection program. It's had a few different names over the years, but most of you will remember it as this if you are already a member in the program. If we go to the next slide, sort of some background on the program. It was started in 1994 and has almost since then been a partnership between FCM and ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. ICLEI is an international organization that helps support local governments with environmental programs and networks around the world. They've also been heavily involved with the international climate movement, COP21, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, and been working with FCM for many years, mainly their office here in Canada, but also their global secretariat in Europe. PCP itself is a network of local governments. Today it's grown to 285 across the country. So much like GMF, it has a broad representation of communities from as small as 150 in population, particularly some of our members out in Manitoba, to all the way up to the city of Toronto and Montreal. So we try to engage cities of all sizes and offer a suite of activities depending on the community's capacity and where they are in the readiness to take action. These local governments, mostly the ones joining today, are the smaller communities, under 10,000 in population. So we do have a lot of focus on how to support smaller communities. And out in the West, we work closely with EcoWest, which is an NGO supporting a number of cohorts of small communities to work through the program. So we also have a major focus on working with regional partners in collaboration. If we go to the next slide, you can sort of see where the map of members across the country is. We currently have 21 in Alberta, and we're always open to receiving new members. Members join through a resolution at council as sort of the political commitment to join the program and work through the milestone framework, and gets that side. And then there's the technical side of developing your inventories, targets, action plans, implementation and reporting on results. You'll see, obviously, we've had a lot of activity in Alberta in BC and Ontario, where there's been active climate policies and programs at the provincial level. We anticipate more of that happening in provinces like Alberta and Quebec, where we're seeing similar provincial movement, which really does help to drive local government action as well. Go to the next slide. So PCP it started as a climate change program looking at greenhouse gases and emissions, but it really is also a community energy planning program, and to some extent has an economic development lens to it. This slide here just captures some of the data from members as they go through developing a baseline inventory. It reveals not only what their emissions footprint is, but also what their energy footprint is. And you can see here for communities of varying sizes how much they spend on energy, the electricity bills, gas bills, other fuel costs, both in their corporate operations and as the community as a whole. It's a considerable sum of money. And if you look at this from an efficiency or an economic development potential, if a municipality can recoup some of that or keep it within its municipal boundary, that can be a huge economic development potential. If you're a municipality that's spending, $2 million on energy, if you could save that money, an extra $200,000 a year, I'm sure your council can find something to do with it. We go to the next slide. So members that join the program commit to working through a 5-milestone framework. It provides a lot of flexibility for how a municipality wants to approach the program itself. You begin by developing your baseline inventory and forecast, so looking at where emissions are coming from, where your energy consumption is happening across both your corporate operations and your community. Involves setting emissions reductions targets. Those are self-defined. We have some recommended targets, but it has a lot of flexibility for what makes sense in the community. We have some municipalities, like the City of Vancouver, has an energy target around their 100% renewable energy, or other smaller communities set a 6% target or a 20% target. They then develop a local action plan in terms of where they can find reductions, implement the plan and activities, tracking how it's going as they progress. Not everything will work out. That's certainly unexpected, but track where you're learning. And then monitoring progress and reporting on results. That's the more quantitative state where you're comparing your progress to your baseline to see if you're making a measured impact with the projects and policies. Go to the next slide. So we offer a variety of tools and resources to help municipalities work through this process. The one that you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen is the web-based milestone tool. This is a resource currently for the first 2 milestones that you can use to compile your inventories. You can input multiple years so you can see how you're performing from year to year. We know Edmonton is actually a quite active user of this tool, as well as a number of our small members, so it is useful and flexible for communities of all sizes, and embeds a lot of the technical guidance and protocols for how to work through the program. In addition, we have a lot of different guidance resources, like the one you see on how to develop a local action plan, but there are others around target setting, how to monitor and report on results to help guide you as you work through the steps. There's also a suite of webinars and podcasts and conference calls that we offer every year on different topics to help people learn and engage with each other. If we go to the next slide. So networking and knowledge sharing, that starts with some of those webinars, conference calls that I've mentioned. We also deliver workshops, whether they're nationally at our Sustainable Communities Conference or regionally with partners in other provinces. A few years ago, we ran another full-day workshop with the Municipal Climate Change Action Center on the PCP program in Edmonton. We will likely look at some other workshops in the coming year, but also tie these onto other conferences and events where we can pull members together, whether they're in person or virtual. Try to offer a number of ways to network for communities that are getting out to other venues or don't have the ability to travel and prefer more electronic meetings. Next slide. Recognition is also a cornerstone of the program. This really helps to maintain the political and public support working through the program. You'll see in the picture there's a little woodcut puzzle in this image. Is sort of our recognition trophy as members complete a milestone. The mayor and council gets another puzzle piece along with a recognition letter. This sort of serves as a reminder and a recognition of progress as the municipality moves along the program and provides some incentive to continue the efforts. We also have a national recognition ceremony that we do every year at our Sustainable Communities Conference. There'll be another one coming up in February. So if you've completed a milestone in the last year, our deadline is the second week of January. If you want to be recognized, you'll be able to get a mention in the audience, and those who complete the final milestone get to come up on stage for some photographs and receive their final trophy. Another major aspect of recognition is our National Measures Report that we produce on a biannual basis that captures what some of our leading municipalities are doing. There tends to be a different theme each year. Sometimes we aggregate emissions reductions. Sometimes we focus on case studies of innovative municipalities. This coming year will feature where municipalities are going, some of the projects they're thinking about going forward, and what some of the broader trends are for municipal climate action. Next slide. PCP also links closely with the Green Municipal Fund, the most obvious of those being the support of grants up to 50% of eligible costs to work through the first 3 milestones. So this is to develop your inventory, targets, and plans. We encourage municipalities to come in and apply to do both streams of the program at once, that being for your corporate operations and your community. And GMF is also quite complementary to a number of the other provincial funding programs that are out there. We know especially in Ontario and BC and Nova Scotia, there are some similar grant funding for climate plans or energy plans. And certainly if something emerges in Alberta, we'll be looking to how to collaborate. Next slide. And this slide just captures some of the results we've been able to document over the years from our National Measures Report. This was a period when we focused on that data gathering from 2008 to 2012, just to give an order of magnitude of what kind of impact municipalities are having on emissions and their investment in projects. So with over 800 reduction initiatives coming from members, they're implementing a lot of projects at all scales. Some of these GMF funded, some of them on their own, but it represents a very considerable investment of funds towards climate action at the community level and measurable impact on emissions. Next slide. So just sort of 2 examples we'll draw from in this section. Obviously, we've heard a bit earlier about some of what Edmonton is up to with the Icon Fox project, but also Edmonton has been a long-time member, was actually a founding member in 1994, and has been through a number of climate plans through the year. So they represent a member that we can use as a mentor to others in the network, and especially as they look forward in their long-term energy transition plan. This sort of aligns with where we're encouraging members to work towards in looking at deep emissions reductions as well, and thinking about the 2050 targets that we're hearing about at the international level. Next slide. Another one of our champion municipalities is Yellowknife up in the Northwest Territories. Also has been a long-time member, and their mayor, Mark Heck, has definitely been a champion for the program and is also a member of FCM's Green Municipal Fund Council. So he's very familiar with both of these programs. And Edmonton has been, they've already worked through their first generation climate action plan, are now coming back to develop a second one because they've actually implemented everything in the first plan, or they've at least evaluated the feasibility. And that one looks like it'll be a GMF-supported plan. So it shows that the program is a continuous renewal process. Municipalities will go through, they'll develop one plan, successfully get through it, and then come back again. And Yellowknife has looked at a variety of interesting projects, from LEED buildings to energy efficiency and residential buildings, and has explored a number of different approaches to district energy. So they're a good example of also being able to test and learn from different feasibility studies. Next slide. So how do you get involved if you're not already a member? Said membership in PCP is free. There's no cost to join. It's done through a resolution at council just to demonstrate that commitment to be involved. So you can access that on our website, or we're happy to send out an orientation package about the program and how to get started. Once you pass the resolution, submit it to us, and we'll get a letter of recognition out to your council. We'll get you listed on our website, and we're happy to have whatever conversations you'd like to have in how to get started, how to link and get an application into GMF for a grant to get you started. But we provide a secretariat support here to help you work through the program. Next slide. And I think that's the section for myself. We'll happy to answer some questions at the end of the presentation. But with that, I will also hand it over to Rochelle, who's our outreach expert with the Green Municipal Fund, and she'll provide you more details on the funding offer for GMF, how it links to some of our programs, and how you might get involved with an application.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the GMF offer, what we can, how we can help you achieve some of your objectives. So we have 3 different funding envelopes. So one for plans, feasibility studies, and pilot project. One for capital projects in the sector of energy, transportation, waste, water. And then we have a separate envelope for brownfield. So their first envelope for plans, feasibility study, and pilot project is $5 million per year. And it's grants. For the capital project in all sectors except brownfields, it's a competitive process, and it's $30 million a year. And we have a separate brownfield envelope that it's loans only for $20 million in a year. Next slide, please. So plans, the goals are to identify concrete actions in our 5 sectors. So that's for a sustainable neighborhood action plan. So actually, it's kind of the phase 2 of a sustainable action plan. We ask you to drill down to the actions. Then we can fund the GHG reduction plans that Devin talked about, milestone 1 to 3, and we can fund community brownfield action plans. So what is the offer here is up to 50% of eligible cost at a maximum of $175 grand. Next slide, please. For feasibility study, what we ask you to do is to assess the technical feasibility of meeting our criteria for capital projects. I'm not going to go through all the criteria today because we have the 5 sectors, but we strongly encourage you to also look at the financial and the life cycle analysis to make sure that your project is sound financially, socially, and environmentally. So again, this falls into our grant category with financing of up to 50% of eligible cost and a maximum of 175 grand. That's for grants. Next slide, please. Pilot projects are, they've been, oh, back, please. Again. Thank you. So pilot project has been revised in this version of the offer. So we have its grants again, and it's to assess the technical and financial feasibility of a capital project. But what we want you to do is to actually invest. So either build something or invest in some sort of smarting system or something like that. These are examples that what you can do with a pilot project. So we really want you to test out either a new technology or a new way of doing things. And then again, it's grants of up to 50% of eligible costs, and the maximum has been raised to 350 to allow for that capital project investment. Next slide. So for capital project, our envelope is 30 million a year. It is a competitive process, which means that your project is being compared with all the other projects that are coming at the same time as you. So it's very important for you in your application to demonstrate why the project is important for your community. And what we ask, we basically evaluate our project on 3 main criteria. The first one is outstanding environmental benefits, where you will see in our basically, if your project qualify, we expect that it's going to be outstanding environmental benefit. Then replication. So what we want is for other municipalities to learn from your project, and then innovation. In terms of innovation at the Green Municipal Fund, it doesn't always have to be technological innovation. It can also be in your financing structure or with the partnership that you're building for the project. So anything really that is kind of new for municipalities is something that we're interested in. Next slide. So the funding that is eligible in our competitive category is energy, transportation, waste, and water. And then we have a separate envelope for brownfields. Next slide, please. So capital project funding for all sectors, we can cover up to 80% of eligible costs. For the competitive process, so project in the energy, transportation, waste, and water sector, the maximum loan amount is $5 million, and the maximum grant amount is 15% of the loan amount, a maximum of $750,000. Next slide, please. So who is eligible for GMF funding? We can definitely finance municipal initiative, but we're also interested in diversifying our portfolio. So it's possible for us to finance partners of municipalities. So really what you need to have a partnership is that it needs to be a project that is of value for a municipality and that the municipality invests in it. So either with a financial investment, so some financial participation, or in terms of it can be land that is being given or tax incentives or things like that. So really what we're looking for is a little bit of skin in the game from the municipality to prove partnership. You can change the slide, please. The financing for capital project in the energy, transportation, wastewater, and brownfield. So we're going to talk a little bit about interest rates. Next slide, please. So loan for municipalities, and this is, we've been talking about municipalities and municipal partners. This is really for municipalities. So when combined with a grant of 15% of the loan amount, these are the rates that we can have. So we have an effective interest rate of 0% for 10 years and 2.29% for 20 years, and that's fixed with no administration fees. Next slide. So the loan for municipalities, we can have different lending structures. Again, there's no fees for municipalities, and we continue, we do the market monitorings to make sure that we're competitive. This is a requirement that we have from our funding agreement from the federal government. So it is important that we're below market. For Alberta, it's very difficult to be below market, so we're at least at par. And depending on the rates that we have, we're open for discussions to try to attract the best project possible. Next slide, please. The funding for municipal partners, it's very difficult to discuss about interest rates in this category because it really depends on your financial information. So we do a thorough lending analysis like any other lenders out there, but it's possible to have a project 10 years or 20-year loan amortization. We loan directly to the developer. This is important to understand. We don't need to transit by the municipality. We can do it directly to the developer. We have competitive interest rates. So again, what we want to do is to be able to attract the best projects out there. So we're open to discussion. We have adaptable warranties and securities and flexible disbursement and payback on loan. Next slide, please. So Brownfield Capital Project, it's funding that is not covered usually by conventional lenders. So we have mortgage loan for decontamination. It's a 10-year amortization. It can be loaned to help residential development, so we can lend directly to the developer, always competitive interest rates, and we have adaptable warranties and securities again, and flexible disbursement and payback on loans. What's interesting here is that the municipal contribution can be tax incentives. So we can be paid at the end of the project when the developer receives the tax incentives from the municipality. Next slide, please. So why applying to GMF? We're coming to the end of the presentation. This is my last sales pitch to attract you to GMF. Next slide, please. So we offer grants of up to 50% of eligible costs for planned studies and pilot projects. This is particularly interesting for studies for you to see if it's worth your while to try to reach your objective. We offer as low as 0% interest loan for capital project for municipal project. We have flexible disbursement and payback on loans. Our offer is stackable with other sources of funding. So there's some areas that are not stackable depending on the program that you're applying for, especially if it's federal. So basically, the main rule of the game here is that there's no double dipping that is allowed. But other than that, we are fully stackable. It's important to compare with the other sources of funding that you might have, because they might modify their amounts if we're in, but we don't. So you'll get national recognition. So like Devin was saying, we have our conference, and we do promote the projects that we funded there. We also talk about them like you've seen today in webinars and other conferences. And we offer personalized service. So you'll have the chance to discuss with me early on your process to make sure that you're eligible, and we can discuss strategies to see, how can you get the larger amount for your project, and we can help you find the information that you need and connect the people that you need to connect to be able to do your initiative. Next slide, please. So that's it for me, and I think that from this point on, it's going to be Q&As. So I think you can go in the chat room to be able to send your questions, or go in the section of Q&As, and we will gladly answer your questions.
Okay, so I'm just scrolling through the chat screen here, so it'll take me a bit. Just bear with me. So first off, my question was, what is a brownfield?
Yeah, maybe I'll go back over that. I'm sorry. I mean, it's sometimes you forget when you're using technical terms. A brownfield is essentially a potentially contaminated site. It actually, you won't necessarily know there's contamination until you go in there, but you suspect there is. enough that you have to get it environmentally clean, or know that it's environmentally clean before you can put it back into use. So they're often old industrial sites, old gas stations. In the case of the Icon Fox, as I mentioned, it was an old Greyhound a bus depot that had a big gas tank underneath that had leaked, and there was a fair amount. So you suspect you don't know for sure it's contaminated, but there's enough suspicion it's contamination that you have to go in and do the studies, understand what it is, and then if you find the contamination, you have to clean it up before you can redevelop it. So they were probably often very useful pieces of land. That's why they were built on to begin with, particularly in the case of things like gas stations. But they end up lying fallow, and you end up with these fairly important properties that you cannot use unless you clean them up, and they end up as kind of gaps in the middle of your municipality. So this is a program to try and help the economics of getting them cleaned up so you can get them back into use.
Okay, and related to that, Ben, is how do you find out where the brownfields are in the city?
Well, you'll have to, there's a number of ways to do it. You're going to have to do it in this province. You would have to do an environmental, you'd have to have an ESA 1, an environmental level 1 on any property that you were looking to redevelop to show that there wasn't contamination. So that level 1 will tell you whether there's any suspicion. If you don't get the level 1, you've got to do the level 2 and start going to look. So it really is a process of, you tend to know where they are, and you tend to bump into them if you actually are going to look to redevelop. Unless you can get that clean bill of health, you're not going to be able to redevelop that land.
Okay. And the next question is, how does the PCP connect with GMFs? Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something. The Green Municipal Fund can fund phase 2 ESAs. So we can't fund phase 1s, which is the history of the site. But the testing, the actual taking sample and testing what's on the ground for phase 2 ESAs for development, we can, it falls under our feasibility study category. So we can offer a grant of up to 50% of eligible cost for that. And often it's being requested that when you buy a new property or you want to sell your property, it's being requested to know exactly what's in it. So, so you can come to us for financing for that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. So the next question is, how does PCP connect with the GMF?
Yeah, it's Devin here. See, there's a few different ways. I mean, the primary one that I talked about was the grant to get through the first 3 milestones. So that's the 50% up to $175,000 to get through your inventory target and action plan for your corporate and/or community-wide planning. After that, that's where the feasibility studies, pilot projects, or capital projects would come in at milestone 4. Once you, at that stage, done your plan and you're looking at implementing something that's in your plan, you could look at a feasibility study to further study it, a pilot project, or a capital project to implement it. There's a few other programs that are complementary. Our Sustainable Community Awards that are also supported by GMF are another venue to get recognition. So members can apply to the energy sector for an award for their local action plan or for a number of their projects they might want to highlight. So those are the key areas.
Okay, and I think we have a plea for help here. If I only have ideas, can GMF help me finding partners?
Well, this is a difficult answer to give because it depends on the projects that you have. But one thing that might be of interest to you is to attend our conference, because our conference that's going to be in Ottawa in February, from February 9th to 11th, is really geared towards networking. So you're going to meet like-minded people there, and you're going to be able to find people to help you. It's difficult for GMF to put you in contact with with consultants, for example, we can't be recommending someone over somebody else. But we do have a list of potential funders for your province, so we can send that your way. And then again, you can look what applies to you and what doesn't. But it really depends on the project that you have.
Excellent. Thanks so
I
much.
think maybe just to add to that, that one of the things that we're really trying to stress is that GMF is not just about giving out money, that there is a repository of information on previous projects, on what other municipalities have done. That's part of the replication part of things, is we want people to actually have a look at what has worked and hasn't worked in other places, so that can be a kind of way to sort of spark ideas as well. So we're not just about giving out money. It's also about trying to sort of make those links for people to the good ideas, to what's happened elsewhere, and we can absolutely help with that piece of the puzzle.
Well, that's excellent, Ben. So I think that's all of the questions. So if there's anything you guys want to kind of leave the audience with, whether it's links, like you mentioned, Ben, to resources or the website or blogs or whatever media or upcoming conferences, I'll leave it to our panel to respond.
You know, it's a kind of generic. I think what I would say is that you really, and I think, we're going into a different place now. I think in Alberta, we've had we're dealing with a different government circumstance. We're dealing with a different interest, clearly, federally as well, it sounds like. So I think there's some real opportunities here, and I think we're at GMF, our major focus is to try and get municipality to take that project that you might be doing anyway and move it beyond business as usual, to be innovative, and we're there to help make that happen. So, I mean, I think there's all sorts of different ways in which we would really, municipalities are going to be the place where a lot of the work on sustainability has to be done. And GMF is really, really well placed and very, very eager to help people be able to move beyond what they might have been able to do, to take some of the risk out of it for them, so they may try that project that they're just not quite sure about, either by giving them information or by changing the economic circumstances for them, so they might be able to take a risk they might not otherwise have looked at. Because a lot of the work that is going to have to happen in this area of sustainability will be through municipalities, will be through the infrastructure that will go into municipalities, and making sure we get that right, and that we give everybody the best chance to sort of move forward, I think is what GMF is mostly about. So as a kind of overall thing, I would really encourage anybody who is looking at even a project that they may be doing as a kind of business as usual piece to check in with GMF to see if there's a way to move it beyond that business as usual. And I would also say that, something that's innovative in an Edmonton context is different from what's innovative in a small town context, and GMF is very aware of that. So innovation, our understanding of innovation is very much contextual. So don't be scared away from the fact that there's all sorts of different kinds of municipalities doing all kinds of different projects. It's really about each community moving beyond what they would otherwise do, and trying something new, especially if it's something that can be shared with other communities that can then follow in their footsteps.
Oh, that's wonderful. Any other closing comments, Devin and Rochelle?
Yeah, it's Devin here. I guess to build on sort of, Ben and I both were able to attend part of the COP conference over the last 2 weeks, and we really heard the role and the energy of local governments and being part of the response to climate change. So what you're seeing today, both in the presentation of the PCP program and the GMF, are two ways that local governments in Canada can get involved and be part of that, whether it's the political commitment through PCP or the process to be looking at what types of projects they can do through the milestones, or access to GMF for some projects and studies to actually do the work. These are some of the enabling mechanisms that help actually respond to the work of some of our big city mayors and other local government leaders around the world to showcase the role of local governments in the global climate commitment.
Okay.
I would add that with that and our new government, GMF and FCM has been asked to look at possibilities in terms of adaptation to climate change, asset management, and different topics that are not currently covered by the Green Municipal Fund. So our team is working very hard at integrating this into some of our activities. So I would invite you to stay tuned because there might be some modification to what we can do in the next year or so. And people are really working hard both on the program front, which is us here, GMF and PCP, but also on the policy front to make the communities center in this fight for climate change.
Oh, that's excellent. And just to kind of revisit something that I think Ben had mentioned, but so Ben, you've got an upcoming conference in February, is that right?
Yeah, it's we have been doing them annually, but we're going to actually not. It's going to be. This is the last annual one, so it's your last chance for 2 years to get there. We won't be doing one next year. It's in Ottawa again. We haven't been back to Ottawa for a while, so I would encourage everybody. It's right in the middle of their winterlude as well, so as another pitch for it, you can bring your skates, and if you've always dreamt of skating on the Rideau Canal, it will hopefully be frozen, depending on climate change. Yeah, it's a really, I've gone to it for quite a number of years, and it's a really good way, both I think for people who have been communities that are, there's two different streams. One is for communities that may just be putting a toe in the water of this, that may be feeling new to it. There's a really good stream for them, as well as communities that may be much further along in terms of advancement, in terms of their thinking. There's a stream around that as well. So it's really good for all, and it's a great place to find out what other people are doing, to hear some really interesting ideas, and in some ways to answer the question about how do you find partners and all that kind. It's been a really exciting conference, and I think attendance is looking like it's really good for this year. So I expect it'll be a very useful time, and I would strongly encourage people to consider. And again, it's for both. It's for political folk, and it's also for people working within. It's one of the very few things we do that actually includes both of those groups together.
So Ben, how do people find information on the conference? What words do they enter in Google?
I think if you go to GMF itself, the Green Municipal Fund, or FCM, so it's fcm.ca, and what GMF is, and it's I'm trying to remember our web is can you guys? I'll let them weigh in.
So
our website is www.fcm.ca. You can go through there and go to events.
Yeah.
And also type in Google SCC, and that's the abbreviation for the conference. So if you type SCC 2016, then you'll get directly to that page. I would also encourage people that would like to know who's on the website. Every year we develop an app. So it's possible for you to be in contact with participants before the conference and make appointments to go and talk to them. So it's a very interactive conference where there's a lot of networking possibilities. And there's even possibilities in the past, there was possibilities of being paired with a municipality that has been there before, and that is more advanced on certain topics than you are, so that you can kind of piggyback on whatever they're doing. So there's that possibility as well.
So last question of you guys, if we have a Greening Government speaker series again, are you guys willing to speak into it?
Sure.
Excellent.
Sure, yes.
All right on. Well, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us here. And, this is the last Greening Government presentation, and I'm not sure when or if we're going next year. So certainly if we do go forward with the next version of Greening Governments, I would love to be able to invite you guys. And I guess the sort of last but not least, this is the last time before we break for Christmas. So I would just like to wish you guys and all the participants today of the webinar to have a wonderful Christmas break.
Great. Thank you. It's been
Thank
great.
you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us. So I will say goodbye from webinar land. Merry Christmas, you guys. Okay, take care.